Hello and welcome to this special edition of our show, coming to you straight from Connected Algeria 2025. It's all about, or a landmark event that is all about building Algeria's digital future. We'll dive into this digital, or what this digital transformation means to our economy, our youth, our industries, and most importantly, for every citizen. The big question is Algeria ready? And how can we make sure that no one is left behind? To answer this question, join me in the studio today, Mr. Victor Arvidsson.
Yeah, hello.
He's the head of strategy, public affairs and innovation at Ericsson in France, Tunisia, Algeria, Belgium and Luxembourg. Before transitioning to these roles, he spent 8 years specializing in radio engineering, giving him a strong technical foundation in the telecom sector. Hello, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. So we will start with a general question. What does Connected Algeria 2025 mean to you personally or professionally?
I think for me, personally and professionally, I think first of all, it's a great opportunity to talk about my favorite topic, which is connectivity. So I think only that brings a lot of good vibrations. Then I think what is working well, and I think what is important on these topics, is to gather together, get a location where we can discuss among peers and agree on where we are and what targets to set. So I think it's, in one word, it's a fantastic opportunity to concentrate and fuel the efforts for the further evolving in Algeria on this.
Mm-hmm. So let us keep it with this event, Algeria Connected Connected Algeria 2025. How do you see this event accelerating the country's shift into the digital age?
Yeah, I think first of all, we Ericsson, we have been in Algeria for 50 years now. So the digital shift, so to say, has been embraced by Algeria for a number of years. And I think already today there are a number of really great achievements. I think, for example, I was listening this morning at the different speeches, and I think it's really interesting to hear all what has been done already in terms of digital infrastructure, in terms of fiber deployment, fiber backbones, and even on the mobile network. So I think a lot has been done. And I think to go even further, because we can always go further, I think it's also interesting to bring up a little bit and discuss the ambitions, what we can achieve, what can be achieved through this connectivity in terms of transformation, in terms of business opportunities, in terms of a lot of other things. And then by discussing all that, we'll come to the insight that, well, we really need very strong connectivity, really strong networks as the foundation for that. So that, in that sense, I think this event is really fantastic because it brings together the connectivity, the foundation, why we have it, and I mean what we want to do, but also very much why we want to do it, what kind of expectations we have in terms of, yeah, as I said, competitiveness of the economy, economic growth, even the transition towards a more sustainable environment. All that, I think, are things that will be possible with this increased connectivity. So that's what I see here, and from what I've seen so far, I think the spirit is really very good, and I'm very optimistic on the proactiveness and the optimism that is shown here.
By key themes, so how can digital tools help modernize our administration?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think I think, of course, the other administration, I will bring it up, but what you see in many countries as well, maybe not necessarily in Algeria, I don't know the specific Algerian situation, but you see in many countries that small companies or mid-sized companies are maybe not digital enough. Mm-hmm. So there is also, I think, a fantastic opportunity to digitalize them more. Are we talking here about
an infrastructure?
And I think in that sense, by having a better infrastructure, you can digitalize and contribute to digitalize small companies, because if they have better connectivity, then they can embrace new tools, new ways of working. And then I think for the administration, it's true as well on another level. I think there are some good examples in other places. For example, in Sweden, you have a lot of digitalization around the medical care, for example. Before seeing a doctor, usually you have a call with a nurse, you could have a video call. A lot of things are digitalized in that way. So, the connectivity is the first stone, so to say, to digitalize. But then, of course, I think it's interesting to look at other examples, to learn from that, and to do it progressively. But for sure, I think that's also a great opportunity, and there are really, I think, great synergies, and also I think a lot of time to be saved by doing that for every citizen, basically, if things can be done online. So,
based on your experience, we keep it with this same question. So how much time can it take to achieve this?
yeah, I think it's a journey. You know, maybe it never ends in the sense. It's a journey, and I think it's important to work on it for sure.
It's
and I think there are
the system.
I think it's probably a few years. And then I think while doing that, I think it's super important also to make sure that the services, the perception of the services increases, that you digitalize and you also give the impression that it's better, that you get a better service, a better care, a faster handling by the administration. So it's not only about digitalizing, it has to go hand in hand with a better service as well. But to me, it's a journey of a few years to see some really tangible improvements.
What's the current status of our fiber optic rollout? And is 5G or 6G already on the radar?
So
what do you think about this?
I think, first of all, fiber and 5G and 6G, they are not exclusive. They will evolve hand in hand. You will behind each 5G or 6G antenna, you will have fiber, and in some cases, fiber will make more sense. In some others, of course, mobile will make much more sense. So both have to progress, evolve, and be deployed. What is interesting in Algeria, as I understand it, is that the fiber network has been very much deployed. So that, I think, is a very strong asset, and I think it's fantastic to be able to build on that. And then the mobile networks are evolving. Now 5G, tomorrow and later on 6G. Then I think what is important is one former CTO of Ericsson used to say, you cannot be a grandparent if you haven't been a parent before. So before thinking of 6G, I think it's important to really embrace 5G.
Yeah, I have a question about the 5G or 6G in general. We know that, or you have just talked about mobile data, okay? These, the 5G or the 6G, both of them, do they have, any negative impact on the environment or on the people in general?
Well, you could think of two things. If you think about the environment, usually people either bring up the energy consumption of 5G and 6G networks, for example, or you could reflect about the radio wave emissions, right? And when it goes to the radio wave emissions, there have been a lot of studies over the latest decades. The 2G network started in the very early 90s, so we have more than 30 years behind us. A lot of studies, medical studies from a lot of research institutes, and at this stage there is no evidence, no sign that there should have any negative effect at all. Of course, you need to respect the exposure levels that have been agreed upon.
Information.
I think it's normal that people raise questions and are concerned. That is, I think, is totally fair. What I can say is that,
especially when it comes to the evolution of technology.
Yeah, I think it's normal. It's. I think we're happy that people ask questions. That's not. But as of today, we can say that if you are within the agreed levels of emissions that are very much standardized, there is no risk for these emissions. And in the sense, 5G is more efficient than 4G, so you have less emissions per bit of information. So basically, 5G is more efficient than 4G, and 6G will be even more efficient. So these new technologies will, in that sense, be even safer, even if the previous ones were obviously within the agreed limits. So,
so they upgraded.
yeah, it's upgraded. It's more efficient, and also it's interesting because it's more energy efficient as well. For the same level of information in 5G, you will use much less energy than in 4G. And in 6G, the intention is to be even more energy efficient, which is also quite important because the amount of data that is transmitted on the networks is increasing permanently. So we need to work to make sure that the networks do not grow too much in terms of consumption of energy. And even in a number of cases that we are able to reduce the energy consumption and even more the carbon footprints of our networks. That's also a priority of 5G and even more of 6G. That's really a prerequisite as well.
Let's move to something else. What's being done to make sure that remote, when we talk about the evolution of technology, what's being done to make sure that remote or rural areas or regions aren't left out or aren't left behind?
No, I think it's a very important point you're raising because you have, I mean, of course, you have people living in these areas. You have maybe small companies that needs to be connected so that they can run their business.
They're disconnected from the world.
Yeah. So there are technical solutions and there are political solutions. Mm-hmm. Of course, on technical solutions, if I start with that, I think first of all, the mobile networks are very good solutions to bring connectivity to areas where you cannot come with the optical fiber because it's too far away or there are too few people. So then you could have, in the sense, what we call fixed wireless access. You could provide the same service as fiber, but through a 4G or 5G network. So in the sense, the mobile networks make it easier to address houses a bit lost in the rural areas. Then I think what is interesting as well is that with these 4G and 5G networks, we start to have technical solutions also that propagate much further away than the former generations with lower bandwidth, for example. So that has better propagation possibilities. Then we start to discuss as well satellite connectivity for extremely rural areas. So that's also an option. But I think all in all, what is very important, the technology makes it possible, but there is also important to have, let's say, a political agreement to do it. And for example, in Algeria, you have the universal service for rural areas, which I think is a fantastic tool to bring connectivity to rural areas. So that's great. And there are other tools. There could be, for example, collaborations among operators to share infrastructure to cover the most rural areas. Or in some cases, you could have public funding to fund the operators to cover areas where there are not enough people to make it profitable, but still we want to have the coverage. So I think there are a number of agreements with the authorities or among operators to make it possible. But indeed, I think you're right, we need to bring it up and to keep it as a focus, not to leave anyone on the side of this.
Yeah, let us talk a little bit about the investment environment. We take Algeria as an example. So how do we make Algeria attractive for tech investors and startups in more particular?
Yeah, it's. I think. I mean, there are many answers to that question. Obviously, I think one dimension which I think is very interesting is to start by building the infrastructure. If I take a bit maybe of a stupid example, but if you want to invent the best cars, probably you will do it in a place with good roads, right? Because you will not invent the Ferrari in a place without any roads. So in that sense, I think it's interesting to have the right connectivity infrastructure, because then as a startup, you can test the services, you can be in an environment where you actually can think of the innovation, because you are there every day in something, in an environment with the right connectivity. So that will kind of facilitate or push innovation. So that, I think, is one aspect, to have a little bit the right ecosystem in terms of infrastructure. Then, obviously, I think it's interesting as well to have this interest that I see in Algeria from the authorities. Like, we want to have startups, we put in place incubators, we want to make it easy for them to test, to succeed, maybe to fail and learn and to try again. So that I think is interesting as well, to facilitate that ecosystem. And then probably what is important as well is to create connections between large companies, small startups, and to kind of have the rest of the ecosystem of the private sector supporting the new startups. That are, I think, some of the ideas.
How prepared are we to protect our data and infrastructure, as you have just said? We're talking about infrastructure here. And here I'm targeting cybersecurity in more particular.
Yeah, it's a good point. Obviously, I think it's not a reason not to do anything, but I think we need, of course, to do more. And I think there are great synergies, opportunities, gains by digitalizing. But of course, you have different levels of risk. You have the cybersecurity one, could be hacking. I think another very important dimension of that, which is related to that one, is resilience. I mean, what happens if if there is a storm, for example, and your network falls down? How do you make sure that your infrastructure is resilient, that you have maybe a redundancy, that maybe you have several mobile networks, that we are thinking of that while we are building the network? So I think cybersecurity is about maybe technical measures to make it more secure, more intrusion-proof. Resilience is about thinking about the architecture to make it support, whatever, a storm or something like that. Then I think there is also a dimension of sovereignty. How do you make sure that the Algerians feel that their infrastructure is sovereign, that they have control over it? And sovereign, everybody has probably its own definition of sovereignty, but for us, sovereignty is not about building walls around a castle and then staying behind the walls, because if we do that, we will never have the best infrastructure. So it's about being open, taking the best solutions, but also having some control over it, and also providing some of the bricks oneself. So I think it's a mix of all that. And if you have some sovereignty, then you have more understanding of what you do, and then probably...
Sorry, what do you mean by sovereignty here?
I think sovereignty is about...
Like nation sovereignty?
Sovereignty is having some control about the infrastructure.
In terms of technology, right?
In terms of technology, of how it is deployed. And I think it's about being open to partners, but also being an active partner. Like, I think it's about openness and also being active and open. That's what it is about. It's not being behind closed doors, because the technology is moving so fast. Today it's 5G coming, the day after it will be AI, 6G and all that. So if you're behind closed doors...
And you bring more investments.
Yeah, and then if you want to attract investments as well, you need to be open
actually,
to
this is what Algeria is doing at the moment.
Yeah. So absolutely. So it's also attracting investments. It's about being open to partnerships, but also having some understanding of what's going on. To being one of the players in the game. That's what we mean with sovereignty, basically, to be part of the games with a partner. It's not about letting them run the show while you watch. It's a bit about being an active partner, an active player in the game.
Connected Algeria 2025 with a vision to 2029. It's closely tied to this vision, where Algeria aims to become a regional digital leader. And what will it take to make that a reality, or to make it a real world in the next 4 years? Because we still have only 4 years, right?
No, I think it's. First of all, I think it's a great ambition. I think it's important to have it. I think it's, of course, a realistic one. I think Algeria has a lot of asset with the infrastructure, but also well-educated engineers, I think a lot of them are graduating from very good engineering schools every year, and I think they are eager to work and to develop Algeria. So I think there are some good assets for that, and providing a vision of where to go, I think, is also a way to funnel all that positive energy. So
Do you think there are going to be short years?
Shortages?
Short years.
Short years. No, I think the problem is that if you set something in 10 years, you know, what happens? You wait for 8 years and then you try to figure out what to do. And if you maybe give yourself 2 years, it's probably too short. So I think 29 is the right number of years, because if there are too few, it's not enough. And if it's too far away, then it's difficult to really set the right objectives and targets. So I think it will be busy years for sure, but I think it's the right duration.
So allow me to talk about people, especially young Algerians. We know that AI, for example, has become, let's say, is gaining momentum. What are the top digital skills are in demand, and how can young Algerians learn them fast?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. First of all, I think that one thing that is interesting with AI, it's also how to, I mean, one thing is how to develop AI and how to master it. Another one is how to use the AI tool in a good and efficient way. Because it's not because there are a number of AI tools that they are necessarily the best ones, or it's not because you have a fantastic tool.
I just gave you AI as an example.
Yeah.
Because we have so many other tools that can be used, I mean, can be learned in the future by young Algerians. So what advice could you offer to these, I mean, young Algerians, how to learn these skills fast?
No, so I think to learn these skills, of course, in AI, a lot of the skills is also around mathematics, that kind of backgrounds, and I think that's the kind of assets you would have in Algeria. In a sense, it's also skills that maybe do not necessarily need a lot of investment in the universities, because it's not like if you were doing biology and you needed a very expensive lab to work with DNA or something like that. I think the positive thing with AI, of course, if you want to run large models, you need a lot of computing power. But to understand how it works and maybe to use it in a smarter way than the people doing very expensive solutions, I think it's possible to do it under many different circumstances. And if you have you have this technological background, the scientific background, the mathematics and computing background, being agile, smart, I think there are ways to progress there. So in the sense, that I think is one dimension for sure, to use that kind of background and to try to reinforce that kind of competence within the universities and engineering schools.
With that brings us to the end of our interview today. Thank you so much, Mr. Arvidsson, for all of your insights.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
And thank you so much, dear viewers, for tuning in. See you next time.